Welcome to the Rowdy Wrestling Podcast with Tony Stabile and Steve Rockamaniac.
There's a rowdy crowd today.
Hey now, everybody. Welcome to the Rowdy Wrestling Podcast right here on rowdywrestling.net. Huge episode. I didn't think it was going to be big because we're talking Slammiversary 15, but a lot has gone on. Some news that we do need to talk about, some tragic news as we've had some deaths in the world of professional wrestling. But before we get to all that, we just got to give some love to the sponsors. Those broskies to make you look good. Heelsandfaces.com. They've been with the podcast for, I'm going to say forever at this point. They're the one-stop shop to make you look good as a pro wrestling fan in the world. I mean, you're not walking around in some stupid shirt that makes you look like you like Fruity Pebbles or whatever the hell The Rock was complaining about for John Cena. No, these guys make you look cool in a very subtle and classy way. Go check them out, heelsandfaces.com. And we're just barreling right into this episode with me, as always, to talk pay-per-view reviews. We have the one, the only, the probably slightly drunk Steve Rockamaniac. How's it going, brother?
Hey now, everybody, as we are back here on the Rowdy Wrestling Podcast, and of course not our normal type of pay-per-view review episode that you are probably accustomed to. Is
you escaped this one last year is what you did.
Yes, basically. Is that
you got saved by the Outlaw?
Yeah, was that Bound for Glory or Slammiversary? I think
he did both. I think he did both. I think he saved your ass both times.
Yeah, well, props to Mark Mercer, but at this point, I am here for a pay-per-view review weekend that contains the 15th anniversary of TNA's debut, and of course, it is Slammiversary, and TNA doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
Of course, it's no longer Impact Wrestling either. As of tonight, we are watching Global Force Wrestling, and
no, you got to give the full name. Global Force Wrestling presents. Yes. Impact on Pop.
And soon to be Spike because they keep, sucking up to them. But, this
hot take. Are we betting $10 before when their contract expires, they go to the Spike?
Oh, well, right now, Jeff Jarrett's kissing major ass there. He was at the Bellator NYC event last week. And, of course, Bellator is on Spike. And also tonight, we had King Mo appear in the main event of TNA. I'm gonna spoiler alert for this episode. I'm probably gonna say TNA 50 times.
Yeah, we're gonna call it TNA. Just like up until 2002 or 2003 was WWF.
Yeah. So the fact that there was already movement there, the fact that Jarrett was at that event, and then all of a sudden King Mo popped up on the pay-per-view for tonight. I think it was only announced on Thursday that he was going to end up.
Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah. So, I think they're aligning towards that. Obviously, they got on the UK version of Spike. Jeff Jarrett has been since day one trying to get back there. One of the main reasons that Impact was no longer on Spike TV was due to Dixie Carter and her love for Vince Russo. So, there could be amending offenses there, which if it is the case, obviously will be a good thing for them moving along the year. But of course, coming into tonight, we kind of joked about it at the end of the last pay-per-view review for the WWE. It's like, all right, well, we're going to have to watch Slammiversary, aren't we? And coming into this weekend, I said to myself, oh boy, okay, Tony's making me watch Slammiversary weekend. And so as a person who, used to be one of the biggest supporters of TNA, as a guy who, here on Montreal radio, used to, boast about some of the matches that were being put on each and every month. And despite the fact that my broadcast partner at the time didn't really like TNA at all, or even wanted to give it 2 seconds of attention. I through the years became a huge fan of them, but have seen the rise and fall of TNA, so to speak. And coming into tonight, I didn't really have much interest in watching Slammiversary. It's been a while that since basically that I've watched Impact Wrestling, and at least on any sort of regular basis. Obviously we've touched on certain things like the final deletions and certain moments here and there, but coming into tonight and this weekend, actually, with the idea that I was going to go back and watch a Slammiversary, I also had the opportunity to, of course, witness a very huge weekend for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I found it very interesting as I sat here tonight watching Slammiversary because the second night of the G1 special was going on. And, the attention was trying to be split in both ways. But I have a lot of interesting comments that I'll be sharing throughout the review here because I'm going to take an approach for this review that it's like, all right, a lot of people have jumped off board from TNA the last few years. They don't watch it on any sort of regular basis. And, as we saw with their rating numbers, they've gone from what their high point was like near 2 million viewers all the way down to like 250 to 300,000. So what, we saw this weekend was very interesting, to say the least, because in the end, as the second night of New Japan is actually finishing up here as we record this week's episode, I'm almost confident in saying that if you put that New Japan product on a major network right now, I think you could blow TNA's ratings out of the water.
Easily. And one of the things I did want to compare is I didn't get to see all of New Japan. That's unfortunately going to have to come throughout the week. But just watching last night's main event, or the night before, depending when you're listening to this, of Cody versus Okada, you told me this wasn't even the best match of that night, but holy shit, was that such a great match. And in, I want to say, almost WWE-esque style booking, you had so many layers and so many storylines and so many plot points that were built within the match that had nothing to do with the match that I thought was really great. Now yes?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was about to say, that being said, had I not seen that match or had the New Japan, the American G1 preview not been going on this weekend, tonight's pay-per-view wouldn't have been bad at all. I'm actually trying to ignore everything that's going on this weekend and just looking at Slammiversary, and it, minus crowd reaction, wasn't a horrible show. Like, honestly, I've seen far more offensive WWE and TNA pay-per-views. That being said, I'm not calling it great, but it would have been a good little pay-per-view. But lo and behold, as you mentioned it, New Japan coming and just, going in bare on TNA, and sorry, wow.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely, there was some positive points here tonight on Slammiversary. We're gonna get to those. Just to touch on what you were saying, Cody's match with Okada, okay, in a way, was not only not the best match of the night, but at least during my interactions throughout that night in the Twitterverse, and the reactions that I was seeing in the wrestling universe overall, the fact that Cody was, that WWE type wrestler, right? That mid card type wrestler, right?
Proved them wrong.
Okay. Proved them wrong to a degree, but at the same time, people were like, oh, yeah, he didn't deserve to be in that main event. That wasn't that good.
Oh, fuck them.
No. But even though it was a good match, and so that made it amongst the lower I guess rated matchups and that's just to make the point of how good that card was. Okay, Elgin and Omega blew everything out of the water by far, and from what I'm seeing so far tonight, everything's blowing that match out of the water as well. Everything's blowing Cody and Okada out of the water, and of course the storytelling was amazing. So just to give an idea, because we're not going to do a full rundown of New Japan Pro Wrestling on today's episode, but that event last night and so far tonight not only showcased that they have a great in-ring product, not only did it showcase that they have a following here in the United States, the merch line was out the building for the entire night. There was a large chunk of crowd who bought a ticket and didn't even see the show because they waited in the merch line all night. They also proved that they could easily take this product, and if they could get a TV deal on a bigger network than Access TV, that for me could actually say, hey, as a guy who normally just watches WWE nowadays because I've soured on some of the secondary stuff, I would watch that product each and every week. Hands down. And I can't say that about TNA right now, despite the fact that they had a half-decent pay-per-view. So let's get into it. Let's touch on it, and let's discuss what we saw. But just before that, Tony, happy National Beer and Titties Day.
I'll drink to that.
All right.
Let's do it. All right. So the night proper, TNA, let's really try and focus on TNA a little bit.
Yep.
Slammiversary 15 opened up with the GFW Tag Team title match. You had the champions LAX, which are Santana and Ortiz, versus El Hijo del Fantasma, Drago. You had Marufuji and Ishimori, and then you had Garza Jr. and Laredo Kid. Before they even started the match, this was a four-way tag, as I should point out, not these two guys versus all the others. They brought out a bunch of representatives from the now partner companies to GFW. You had AAA, you had, I think, Crash, you had a couple of different people, which, good on them. They're trying to bolster themselves and say that, look at us, we're worldly and we're with everybody, but whatever. The match itself felt very long in the tooth for me. I mean, this went just over 15 minutes as your opener, and it was too many bodies in the ring for me. And in the end, the only real thing I remember of the match itself is that A, they never fully explained Lucha rules unless I drowned out the announcers, and B, there was a lot of hurry up and let me wait for the other guys to get in position to take a move. There was a whole lot of that at the beginning of the night.
Yeah, that often happens when you have these many guys in a match and they want to have their spots in. And of course, as we saw as we went throughout the night, they were running out of time. They were trying to do too much in the amount of time that they had for tonight's show. That being said, the opening matchup was decent. It did its job of what you want in an opening match. Some quick high-flying action, get the crowd moving a little bit. Of course, that was probably the only moment that the crowd was awake tonight. And so the matchup, and I'm reminded of a line that Drunk JR. Yes, Drunk JR. If for anyone who watches night one of the New Japan show, try to tell me that JR wasn't drunk that night, because there was no way he was sober.
Oh man, it really showed. Either that, or we're making fun of a guy who's probably having a Bell palsy attack, and then in that case we're sorry. But if he's drunk, we just want to point out that we're right. Yes,
exactly. So he started last night's broadcast for a 5-on-5 match. Same thing, same type of situation, like 10 guys in a tag team match. Okay. And he says, "All right, this is going to be exactly like an all-star game, all offense and no defense." And so you obviously got this crazy high-flying spot fest, and you had the Young Bucks in the match, which makes awesomeness just to begin with. But I was reminded of that. When I was watching the opening match tonight on Slammiversary, I was like, all right, we're going for the same type of match. And you're trying to get the crowd going. So I'll mention the positive and say they had a decent little match, and they got the crowd going. They did their job and opened the pay-per-view well. But the point that I want to say is that when I compare that, for myself, as a person who hasn't watched this product for a long period of time and happened to watch New Japan for the first time from beginning to end last night, that New Japan match was like at least 3-4 times better than that opening match for TNA. So, that was like for me, because that's what ended up being it for me tonight, where I was like doing this comparison between the two. I was like, all right, which would capture my eye? And that opening match, New Japan blew it out of the water easily.
All right, and there's one thing I do want to touch on before we move over to the next match is Homicide hit the safest looking cop killer, the vertebraker, I've ever seen, but he did it on the goddamn apron. So I'm like, you're trading a little bit of safety for one dumb spot to hit a move. And I'm sitting there like, God damn it, Homicide. Like, this is a guy... Listen, how do I put it this way? This guy's not even in the match, so he took no bumps, took no offense, only gave offense, and that was it. He decides to hit a very fucking dangerous move in a very bad spot.
You want to know why? Because that spot, that type of spot, hit last night and hit tonight on New Japan Pro Wrestling. Sickest spots of the night. And, actually, no, it wasn't the sickest spot of the night tonight, because the sickest spot of tonight was the Meltzer driver to the floor. But
yeah, that I did get to see, thankfully. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes, but no, they that was like a huge spot last night, and I bet you Homicide tried to steal it.
All right, well then let's move on over. We had another tag match. We had Moose and DeAngelo Williams versus Eli Drake and Chris Adonis, the former Chris Masters. This went just about 10 minutes. In my mind, this is really a throwaway tag team match. Like, they probably built this up on TV. We'll be honest, we haven't followed the recent TV goings on, but I do want to point out DeAngelo Williams, or DeAngelo Williams, however you say it. I'm sorry. For a guy who's relatively new and actually a football player, goddamn, he surprised me. I was really surprised at how not bad he was, and at one point hit a hurricane-style neckbreaker, and I was like, good on him. Good on him for not sucking.
Yeah, the guy has put the time in to make sure that he doesn't look like a complete bum, and you got to give some praise to that. Because we've seen people come in and try to participate in pro wrestling.
What is it, Pac-Man Jones?
Yeah, Adam Pac-Man Jones. Oh God, don't remind me of this stuff.
They name dropped him real quick tonight, because they're like, we're TNA wrestling, not home to many athletes coming and taking a chance, and they went really quickly. Adam Jones. So you're like, are you trying to distance yourself for any reason?
I'm not sure. Maybe why? Yeah, maybe because he appeared on WWE TV like a month ago. No, okay. But Moose's entrance, right?
Yeah, with all the cheerleaders.
Yeah. Have you ever seen more unenthusiastic cheerleaders in your life?
Have you ever seen this guy? Well, no, because this is Moose himself. Most of the time, Moose is just like, Moose.
Yeah, I get that, but it's just so like
the girls feed off of the guy. I mean, if your team, listen, let's throw some Montreal Alouettes out there. Have you ever really paid attention to the cheerleaders when the Alouettes are like losing 32-0?
Honestly, no. So I'll let
I'm
you go. I'm
surprised you haven't, but it's the same thing. Like, they go out there like they ain't really smiling, and it's kind of like. We look at our butts, That's you're right. These girls were very bland.
It's been a few years since I've been to an Alouettes game, but from what I recall, I mean, they're still doing their dance, they're still doing their thing.
Yeah,
all right?
But okay, you're right. The Alouettes girls are far more animated, but still not. It shows.
Like, we could ask Sexy Eddie about it, since he obviously got a more closer up view on it on a regular basis, being one of the mascots, of course.
Yeah. Well, Pal Marino's there often enough. We could ask him as well.
Exactly, but
you're right. These girls were
like, I get
Soma
the fact that,
away from sleep.
I get the fact that Moose is like kind of like that type of character, okay, but to me, this is my own personal taste, I would have found it much funnier if Moose is that type of character and the cheerleaders are going crazy. Like, to
every little bland movement he would make, they'd all pop and freak out.
I would find that much funnier as opposed to what they did. I was just kind of like, wow, they seem unenthusiastic. Like,
I wish they would have stuck around ringside, because everybody else had just a whole crew at ringside for almost every match.
Like, I feel like it's as if they were like booked and they were told like, hey, you're gonna go work a wrestling match like today. Like, they thought like it would be like WWE, and then they got there and they're like, okay, we're paying you $50. Like, or here's a couple pieces of pizza or something like that, and then they were just kind of like, oh, let's do it half-assed.
Here we have some memorabilia. Here's a frame and part of the ring apron from that third Samoa Joe TNA title victory.
Yeah, we have like a lot left over in the warehouse, so we really needed to move those on the,
Yeah, we got to move the warehouse, guys. So just take them.
Enjoy.
But the match itself, like, while it's really weird to say, but for me, the shining light was Williams. You had Eli Drake and Chris Masters in there, who just, I don't know, it just felt really weird. It wasn't all that great of a match. I mean, these guys did the best they could do. Moose, I don't know how to say this, but I don't see anything in him, and I think you and I have proven it right there. We feel he's pretty much a black hole of charisma. Mm-hmm. So you have him in there with a guy who's, not a bad newbie versus Eli Drake and Chris Masters, of all fucking people. So you're not going to get a 4-star classic.
No one would expect a 4-star classic out of this. It was an okay match, and it seemingly went over well overall with the TNA fans from what I saw on the reaction.
They hadn't died yet.
So yeah, exactly. So it's like, but that's the thing. It's like they started off hot, and then they got to this match, and it was like, okay, and that's when the crowd started to like go downhill. They still had at least one more hot spot to come, because they got their special returns, and then after that it was just dead. Yeah. So that crowd, and speaking of the crowd, that crowd was so bad, and we'll talk about it more as we go throughout that.
I'll blame
the reaction.
Like, half of the crowd is to blame on this, and half of it's the show itself. It's much like the NXT situation, where you have the crowd that's just too spoiled, and then decide to either not care or go into business for themselves. And this is the kind of crowd that, just didn't care. And I even if the match or the night would have been even better than it was, I don't think they would have had as great a reaction regardless.
Well, that's the thing. They popped at first, and then they actually get a good match later on, and they don't care. Meanwhile, comparison, okay?
Oh, here we go.
U.S. crowd, okay? This is not in Japan here. This is the U.S. crowd in freaking California, people, all right? That crowd was amazing for the last 2 days of New Japan Pro Wrestling. They did not go into business for themselves. They were constantly hot, and they were constantly showing respect to everybody. It was like as if they had a crowd who trained themselves to be Japanese at the same time. It was amazing.
Did you have a lot of
there were, on occasion,
nice. I really got to get back and watch that then.
The crowd was amazing. They were hot. They were reacting. They didn't go into the business for themselves. I didn't catch any CM Punk chants. It was good stuff. This crowd tonight, I was like, it was disturbing me to a degree, because I'm like, all right, I haven't watched TNA in a long time. And here I am watching the pay-per-view, and I'm actually watching a decent match at this point in time. So we'll talk about this match now, and even if we go out of order, okay? The match between Low Ki and Sanjay Dutt.
Oh God.
Okay?
I didn't get that.
They had a decent match, okay? They tried to do one of those old school, like hard style, like, the Japanese, style, right? The strong style, right? They tried to do that hard type of style. Obviously, comparing off of New Japan matches the last 2 days, nowhere near any of them. But for TNA standards, trying to, get that crowd going, being intense between these two guys. Wow. The crowd was like literally dead. There was high spots, crazy spots going on. Crowds was like, and then they're like, oh, boo. And it's like, and I'm like, are you serious? This is like, at this point I had because in the first hour, I was like more intense into the New Japan show. And then kind of after the first hour, I tried to put a bit more attention to the TNA show, because I knew we were going to talk about it tonight. And I said to myself, all right, as a guy who used to watch TNA all the time, if I remember this match, if this type of match, this exact match that they had between Sanjay Dutt and Loki, if you transplanted this match that they had on air tonight and put it on a pay-per-view from 2005, okay, the crowd would have gone apeshit. And tonight, they did not care. And it disturbed me. Honestly, I said, I just don't get it. Are they just like so fed up that they don't even care anymore? Like, have they gotten to that point where it's, and I know the Impact Zone and the crowds there have slowly gone downhill over the years, and the fact that you're in that building still has been a topic that has been negative, that has come up over the years. But I was just like, okay, they realize it's like this one of these big shows, right? That, you know, maybe they and these are the hardcore TNA defenders, okay? These people that are there are going to be those hardcore TNA defenders, some of which I get in arguments with on Twitter. You know, I got this guy 2 weeks ago who's like, "Oh, TNA is the first ever to go to India, and yeah, they never went on strike." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Like WWE went there and did house shows a couple, like they've been there before. Just because Jeremy Borash says that on TV doesn't make it real." He's like, "Okay, fine, but they never went on strike." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, and it's like the strike from a few years ago. I'm like, that's half storyline. Like, it's like not fully real.
All the time that the crowd walked out, not the crowd, but the roster walked out on Triple H.
Yeah.
While he was still a face leader.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I get that there was maybe some heat there with how things were playing out, but I'm like, it wasn't a full real walkout. I'm like, okay, so that's the type of fans I'm talking about, okay? TNA fans who like, and then they just say, "Oh, you're a stupid Mark." And I'm like, okay, whatever, buddy. So those type of fans are supposed to be like those fans that are still there, right? That who are going to defend it to the death. And I'm watching this match and
they're the ones who aren't physically there, unfortunately. They're the ones who aren't buying the pay-per-views. They're the ones who aren't bankrolling this company, because if they were, they'd be making more money.
And at that moment, I'm thinking to myself, we have like one of the hardest of hardcore TNA fans that listen to our podcast. Okay, shout out to Terry. This whole broadcast is for you, Terry. Okay, you know. So, and I'm thinking to myself, the crowd.
But Terry's not stupid though.
No, but I'm sitting there saying I'm actually wanting to give some praise to this match. I'm actually enjoying it. I think they're doing a decent match.
A very decent match.
And the crowd didn't care. And I'm like, I don't get it. Like, this match 10 years ago would have been like, oh my God, match of the night type of thing.
This match 10 years ago would have been looked at today being like, remember that? It would have been in the vein. And honestly, in my opinion, it would have been in the vein of Joe, Styles, and Daniels. Not the same level, but it would have been in the same conversation.
Well, that's why I mentioned putting it on a 2005 pay-per-view. That would have been off the charts. Like, oh my God. And the crowd would have been going crazy. So really and from at least more specifically,
like the moonsault
from
stomp right there, you've won.
Yeah. And from this match going forward for the rest of the night, even the main event, I was like, the crowd's not caring at all. And it sounded so weird. The acoustics all of a sudden became really weird in the Impact Zone too, where it was kind of like, you even hear these weird, echoes and coming from the rafters type of thing. And I was kind of like, oh, okay. So that kind of disturbed me. I was just like, all right, that match was good. I wanted to give praise to the match, and I was just like, the crowd didn't care. So, props to those two guys. They still had a good match, and I could put that over for sure.
Well, where I think the match or the night kind of went off the rails for a bit and likely hurt the crowd was the no DQ tag team match. Borash and Joseph Park defeating Josh Matthews and Scott Steiner. Now, before we even dive into this, I'm just going to talk about the finish. Not even the good part of the finish. I'm talking about Abyss, who in storyline is recognized as the brother of Joseph Park. So not the same human being. Abyss pinned Josh Matthews. Fuck you. Fuck you and the horse you rode in on. That alone pissed me off, and it came off of something where I texted you the moment it happened. I'm like, respect to JB and respect to Josh Matthews. You know, a little bit more Matthews because he's been trained as a wrestler versus Jeremy Borash, who isn't. Both of them, like, Josh took the Abyss Slam into the thumbtacks, a very safe Abyss Slam, I must add, into the thumbtacks, and fucking Jeremy Borash, and I'm dropping a lot of F-bombs here because it merits it, comes off the top rope, and they called it a frog splash, but it looked more just like I'm jumping and praying to God I don't die, splashing onto Josh Matthews, and goes palm first into the other thumbtacks. And, like, he knew what was going to happen. We all knew what was going to happen. The second he's up on the top rope, I'm like, if he goes face first, he's getting arms and hands full of it. I thought he would have sentoned, right? I thought he would have just gone and done a senton or back bump, take it where the thumbtacks hurt the least. Holy shit, he took it hand first. As
he came down, his eyes were closed. Like, oh no, it's going to happen. Like, literally.
And then his eyes, already JB naturally has very large eyes. I could have sworn his eyeballs were about to pop out. He's like, this hurts right away. There is no adrenaline. This sucks. And I remember being, I'm going to say 12 or 13, being this young little idiot kid. I found the Arsenal's email address and added this guy to MSN. Shout out to how old we are. Okay. And I just start just drilling this guy with questions, and I'm really showing what kind of kid I was. And I went, thumbtacks, those are fake, right? And like Arsenal goes, no, you idiot, they're not. I'm like, well, does it really hurt? And he goes, well, generally, by the time you get to the thumbtacks, your body's pretty numb. So on your back, you don't feel it. He goes, where you do feel it is your elbows and your palms. Those fucking suck. And for Arsenal to admit that something hurts, I mean, that's saying something.
Yes, so, exactly. For our international fans, Arsenal is one of the IWS legends. Of course, IWS being the home fed of Kevin Owens and El Generico.
International Wrestling Syndicate, IWSWrestling.com, free plug. Go check them out. They just had an awesome show at Unity.
And if you don't know about them, you're going to find out about them during the Kevin Owens DVD that's coming out, as there's a lot of footage that got included, actually. So you'll learn about them. And Arsenal explaining it very well there. But this match, I mean, let's it starts off and it is what it is as it starts off, and they fight to the back, and then we see the case of Anthem versus the Hardys over intellectual property, basically play out on television.
No, but right there is the proof. If the Hardys are smart at all, they're going to show this to the courts and be like, there's your proof, judge, because I forget how we were discussing it, but this was the concept of total nonstop deletion without the heart and without the finesse. Because sure, JB might have been the guy that helped them do it, but he was just pointing a camera. He's not diving into characters. And a lot of like the crazy wacky things that happen at one point, what's his name? Josh Matthews and Steiner hop into, and Steiner looking old and wrestling with a shirt on. Let's point that out. And was ashamed to do his, Steiner up bicep pose. So Steiner's getting old and getting flabby in my mind. But I digress. Let's go back into this.
But he banged 15,000 women.
Then you should be vascular as fuck. Anyways, and dehydrated. That being said, they hop into a golf cart, and both of them are chanting, run over the fat asses. We're going to run over the fat asses. And somehow, the fat asses are much faster than that golf cart, which is believable until that point. Wait till we get to the car. And they run around a corner. They grab fire extinguishers that are just sitting there on the floor, and they spray, the heels. And they make comedy jokes, and then it turns into a 100% comedy match where, they redo the guy, pulling up in the truck and talking to the wrestlers being like, I like it, and then getting the crap kicked out of him. They did that again, except now it's just pure comedy. And these are supposed to be functioning human beings, every one of them, except for Scott Steiner, who is a legend, and I will never say anything bad about him. Even though I just did. That being said, the comparison you make to Total Nonstop Deletion, the Final Deletion, and all that is you had characters that weren't human beings. At that point, Broken Matt Hardy had transcended from being a human being. Jeff Hardy is not a human being. When they wrestled against the Decay, they're not they're not human beings at that point. You really throw caution to the wind. You really throw your suspension. You really suspend your disbelief. You are ready to believe anything you want, and that's what worked in the case of those. Like, that's why you could sit back and go, okay, this kind of makes sense. This isn't necessarily pro wrestling for me, but whatever it is, I get it because of the characters. Now you turn this into a cartoon. Meanwhile, you're supposed to have a real person-to-person feud here because your announcers aren't cartoon characters. Your announcers are human beings. Your announcers are semi-journalists. So for me, that really pissed me off because I'm sitting there, I'm like, I see what they're doing here. You mentioned it. They're trying to show the world that no, this is not Matt Hardy. This was JB, and this was Impact Wrestling and writers who created the Total Nonstop Deletion. No, here's the proof. Matt Hardy did it. This proved it hands down.
Yeah, tonight was and this is the famous part of it. Tonight, what you saw was Jeremy Borash's IP, intellectual property, right? The whole broken character and broken universe and broken gimmick was so much more than what Jeremy Borash shows in these type of videos. And okay, before any TNA mark jumps on me, I didn't forget about Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt. Okay, I don't need to hear about
that
it.
Was
I know.
garbage.
Okay?
We're not even gonna. It's not worth it. We both buried it. We hated it. It was shit.
Exactly. But anyways, that plays out, and I'm just like, okay, listen, I liked the broken gimmick. Okay, I didn't like the final deletions. I think I kind of shared that here on our podcast when we talked about those things playing out on television. We didn't really put those over to begin with, the actual final deletion things. Okay,
and the original has grown on me. That'll admit it. But outside of that,
Yeah, well, see, that part, that's the Jeremy Borash intellectual property. And that's what played out again tonight on the show. Now, it turns into, and the goal is to what? Of course, show Jim Mitchell, who makes his special return for this, and with the Abyss mask, to lead into, of course, Abyss making his return run-in to end that. And, of course, the thumbtack spot, right? So they move out to the ring, and they're like, "Where's Joseph Park?" And so the fight is going on, and then Stone Cold Shark Boy returns. Cold Shark Boy, everybody.
Well, he made a small appearance in the pool moment.
Yes,
where these guys wrestled in a pool.
Yes,
not in a lake next to a dilapidated boat, but in a pool pulling backyard things. Where they did a back body drop and then a senton.
Yeah. So then, of course, James Mitchell comes out as the Abyss music plays up. Now, of course, I think for anyone who's at least heard us speaking for a long period of time on the Rowdy Wrestling podcast and previous addresses of our interactions, and if not during my previous interactions on radio here in Montreal, I'm a big mark for the nostalgia factor in pro wrestling. When you have the Raw 15th anniversary, 1000th episode, whatever it may be, and they bring back everybody from the past. I marked out for Virgil being in that match with Joey Janela a couple weeks ago, just because it's Virgil and it's nostalgia. Okay, so when Abyss's music hit, I kind of had a little rise. I was like, oh yeah, I remember how over Abyss used to be back in the day, and so I was like, oh okay, it's kind of cool. Abyss is here.
But I'm going to challenge you on that. Is Abyss was still a character on television as late as November and December?
Oh yes, but I haven't watched in years.
True. Okay. All right. So I'll give you that personal, odd nostalgia, I'll give it to you. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, and even if he was on TV for November, he's been doing the Joseph Park thing for kind of on and off for a long time. No. Yeah. So either way, if the music plays, pop, and of course, then you do the thumbtack spot, and I'm like, oh, okay, there's more nostalgia. That used to be the highlight of every pay-per-view back in the day. So yeah, and they do that, and that's I have to give props to Borash and to Matthews. The spot, for me it was over. So I since I did have the nostalgia factor there at the end, I could give a positive overall thought on that, and not take a total crap on it. I could walk away with okay, that was all right. I could accept it. It wasn't anything great. I wouldn't pay to watch that ever, but it was what it was in terms of saying, oh, okay, well, that's what TNA used to be. I used to like that back in the day, and it's obviously not what they put on TV every week nowadays. And so it's a different situation. It's more to have that throwback a little bit. And so, yeah, I do give props, though, nonetheless, for that spot. Those two guys are not guys who would normally do a thumbtack spot. So,
yeah, I'll agree. As I mentioned, I gave them all the props at the beginning, but now I have to bury something. Mm-hmm. In what has become, I honestly feel, a running gag. The 3-man booth, where you have the third commentator, is usually the worst human being in the world. And the Pope gave me the line of the night. I really don't think anybody made a dumber call. This is, I think, a near exact quote. The Pope said, "Josh has been trained by some of the greats, like Al Snow and others."
Oh, you mean the guys that you fired this week or 2 weeks ago? Yeah, good job. Way to put them over.
But this is how you put them over. Some of the greats, like Al Snow and others. That's it. Like, at the very least, give me 2 names and then say others. No, you drop Al Snow, who known as a great trainer, but not known as a legend.
Let me put it into a different context. Okay, if you said to Kevin Steen, who trained you, well, Jacques Rougeau and others, the others was a guy in a barn. Okay, so it can make sense in a certain way.
For fuck's sakes.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's enough of that match. Props for the thumbtack spot, and Major. Of course they still use thumbtacks in another match after, but it's not as impressive the second time around.
Nor with who did it. So let's move on over Full Metal Mayhem, and it's not even a Full Metal Mayhem with something at the top of the ladder. No, this is a pinfall or submission, which I'm glad they actually explained before. Where you had Eddie Edwards and his wife Alicia versus Davey Richards and Angelina. I had to explain this to you. Davey Richards and Angelina are the heels. They make their entrance first, and while they're halfway down the ramp, Eddie Edwards and Alicia attack them from behind. Now, how late it was, I didn't realize. That might have been a call to shorten the show a little bit. Shorten their match because they didn't have enough time to do full entrances. Regardless, put the faces out first and have the heels attack them. Not the other way around. This was stupid. If I'm there and I'm a casual fan, if I'm a friend being invited over to your house, Steve, and you watch it every single week, you are ordering this in HD on your old tube television, I wouldn't know who the face and who the heels are, or I would immediately be like, oh, Eddie Edwards and Alicia are dicks. They're bad guys, aren't they? I'm rooting for Davey Richards and Angelina Love. No, this was ass backwards. That started the match off so poorly for me. I understand that people have made comparisons in WWE, especially in 2017, but going all the way back to the 80s, big matches, the faces act like complete heels, like Hulk Hogan attacking Sergeant Slaughter before their big match when Hulk Hogan won the title. Like he backraked Sergeant Slaughter, he attacked him before the bell and all that jazz. Like, I get it, but come on, guys. let's have just a semblance of organization and storytelling.
Yeah, see this match, and you have a great point about the heels and faces, and I'm not talking about the T-shirt company, obviously.
Heelsandfaces.com.
Yes, please visit them. And I need a shirt, by the way. So
it's coming, brother. It's coming.
Yeah, exactly. So this match, now I'm a guy who loves hardcore. Okay, I can mark out for a good hardcore match. And I have in the past. However, I was sitting there watching this match, and I was kind of like, all right, there's too many things in the ring right now. Like
Angelina Love isn't able to put a table in the ring. She has to call her husband over to help her push it in.
Yeah, and I was thinking to myself, and like I had a flashback to our days in IWS, and I was kind of like, okay, the table gets set up, you smash it, then you. What did we do as ring boys if we were ringside?
Yeah, pull that out.
Yeah, pull that shit out and throw it onto the ring, right? So I was kind of like, all right, there's too many things in the ring right now. There's too many things going on, and
the ref can't be bothered to at least kick it under the bottom rope.
And I was just like, okay, no, they're trying to do too much at the same time right now. So that kind of took it away from me, man.
Well, this was an 18-minute match stuffed into an 8-minute cat.
Yeah, and so I was kind of like, okay, I'm normally a guy who likes hardcore stuff. Like, they announced the match. They said, hey, next up, hardcore, full metal mayhem, and it's Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards, for Christ's sakes. I'm like, those are good wrestlers. Okay, this is going to be good. We got women in there. Maybe they'll actually do something that, and that'll be impressive, kind of like JB taking a tack spot. All right, let's go. I'm excited. I'm interested. You got me. Let's go. And then I was kind of like, okay, there's just too much going on in this ring right now. It's just not working. They didn't draw it out properly, and that took away from it. That being said, the finishing spot, well done. The double table spot for the finisher, that was well done.
Wait a second. I'm actually going to call you out on that. Yep. Only because I really feel they should have rotated that table, because when they did that, when Eddie Edwards did the sunset flip powerbomb, he went through the table, but like on the metal, like on the legs. Like you saw his legs bend. Like he got lucky he didn't get injured there.
Okay, well, I safety aside.
Ring positioning.
Safety aside. The ring is too small. That's my point.
Yeah, that's true.
That was my point from
get rid of that
earlier.
Goddamn hexagon ring.
There's too much things in that ring for such a small ring. The hexagon was not working for that, and it's kind of like
the luchadors lost themselves in it.
Yeah, and so I'm like, okay, this is what is wrong right now. I'm looking at this ring, and it's like, fuck, what the hell is going on? There's too much stuff in there. They can't move, and yeah, okay, I agree with you. The spot wasn't safe. Okay, fine. But as far as a hardcore spot was concerned, which I've seen stupider and more dangerous stuff, even though stupider is not a word. I'm reminded of Sabu trying to put through the table Rey Mysterio in that outside the ring at ECW One Night Stand 2006, and it looked like the guy had died. So I've seen bad spots. Doesn't mean that we didn't mark the hell out for it. I was in that arena live for ECW One Night Stand 2006. That crowd marked the fuck out for that shit. So, that's why I was like, okay, hey, I like that spot, because it was just kind of sick. The women actually went through the table, and then the guys did a 6 spot through the table. Dangerous as fuck, yes, but I like the finishing spot nonetheless.
All right, I'll give it to you. So then I didn't get to see this. I skipped it because I came in late to the show, and I mean, this is no disrespect, but Ciena versus Rosemary, what happened here?
Nothing much, to be honest with you. Straightforward women's match. Crowd was so dead, it wasn't even funny. They were trying to get heat or reaction, and they weren't getting it. Occasionally, you'd get a boo. Like, literally. Like that, unenthusiastic.
Like a half-hearted, I'm here to participate for the free sandwich.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I'm one to exaggerate, I know, but no, I'm not exaggerating. And so it was kind of like, okay, straightforward, nothing much, nothing happened, and the crowd didn't care. So and although I do give props to Rosemary's entrance, very cool, the Walking Dead-ish type of entrance with the music, works very well. That I was impressed by. Match itself, nothing to write home about.
All right, then let's go to what I skipped for. Champion versus champion unification match. The GFW champion, Alberto El Patron, versus the Impact TNA heavyweight champion, Bobby Lashley. Both men had a big entourage coming into it. Well, Alberto had his father and his brother, but Bobby Lashley had King Mo, as you pointed out, as well as, I think, half of, American Top Team that's not contracted to UFC.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a bunch of guys out there. That was almost not Pacquiao. What's his name? Oh my God, I'm losing him. Using chinchilla shorts. Faced Big Show.
Floyd Mayweather?
Holy crap, I lost that name. Yeah, Floyd Mayweather. Almost Floyd Mayweather level entourage.
Only the biggest fight of the year.
No. It's not happened yet. I have the right to forget names. Until it happens.
Jesus, we've been it's only been talked about.
Do we cover that on the show? We should really cover that on the show, because that is as pro wrestling as real combat sports gets.
I cover it on my Twitter all the time, but
I know, but I mean, let's actually do a show about it, because I'm going to be watching it. I mean, everybody's going to be watching.
Just for your own sidebar information, even though we're doing this live on air, that's around the time that we're supposed to do that broadcast of the anniversary type of broadcast. So it's the exact same weekend.
Oh, well, that weekend's going to be big, because that's also SummerSlam weekend.
SummerSlam's the week before.
Is it?
Yeah. All
right, so then we're going to have a hardcore week and a half.
Yeah, see how we're doing our live on air programming for everyone to listen to.
That's right. We don't have production meetings.
We're unprofessional jerks.
That's what we are. Anyway, So let's really talk about this match, because I liked it. I thought this was a great main event. The Jeff Jarrett speech beforehand kind of killed me a little bit, because I can't take Jeff Jarrett as he technically is a good businessman. I mean, look how he got himself right back into a company he sold. So in the end, he's made a shit ton of money off of a company that made no money, and that is hilarious.
Yeah, we have to touch on that for sure. But to touch on the point of you saying you like the speech, that speech was a result of what actually you had texted me earlier in the night, because you were like, these matches are going way too long.
Way long.
And so, despite some of the positive things you said about the matches up until now, some of those matches did go too long, and the timing was not there. And Bruce Pritchard wasn't there. We don't know if this is a shoot or a work at this point.
Well, I do want to point out one thing, though.
Mm-hmm.
The second longest match of the night, I believe, was one that was done by one of the now producers and agents of Impact Wrestling, Sanjay Dutt.
Yeah.
So the only one that didn't get cut.
That plays into the fact that not only was Bruce Pritchard not there, and we're not sure if that was a work or a shoot. Apparently there's all sorts of craziness going on backstage today. Apparently there was a lot of controversy building up into the main event as well. That's being rumored. And I kind of found it weird that Jeff Jarrett kept telling Alberto Del Rio what to do in the ring after the match.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that was really blatant.
And before the match, for that matter. And that whole near beatdown during the pre-show. During not the pre-show, but the pre-match of the main event. But that speech was so rushed and nothingness because of the fact that they didn't have enough time left to give it the proper due. Irregardless of the fact that Jeff Jarrett has just sold snake oil through Anthem, that moment could have been your moment where let's get rid of the past. That you could have said, okay, we're starting something fresh. Let's rid ourselves of Impact Wrestling. Let's rid ourselves of Dixie Carter. That could have been, which they wouldn't have done. Okay, they wouldn't have done this just due to business agreements. Okay, But if it was me, if it was there and in charge of this in some sort of fashion, that could have been your Shane Douglas NWA title moment. You know, and no, it wouldn't have launched them into that superstardom, or not. And ECW wasn't superstardom, but it launched ECW to a certain level, and it wouldn't have really relaunched it, but it would have been a cool moment. And if there's one negative that everyone always talks about, you know, in regards to TNA, it's, you know, the past few years more specifically, and due to that, you know, agreement basically between Anthem and Dixie Carter, where Dixie decided to sell to them because they basically let her walk out with her head held high in the clouds, where she thought that she was actually some sort of you know, successful wrestling promoter. You know, that could have been your moment where you really separated yourself, because that's what you want. That's what you need. That's what you need to do at this point, where you need to relaunch this company and say, even though it's GFW and there's no real value to that just yet, you want to get away from it. And they didn't do that. It was TNA. And then it became Impact Wrestling, but Impact Wrestling was still TNA. And they didn't take advantage of that. They rushed that promo because all those matches went too long. Yeah. So, yeah, that was a dropping of the ball for me as well, because I just like, okay, this is stupid. This is a dumb speech. It was too short, and you dropped the ball on an opportunity to really say, hey, let's go. Let's do something new.
Yep, and then we go into the main event, and as you mentioned, there was a brawl at the beginning of it, but then it evolved back into a pro wrestling match, and honestly, I thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, both guys went in there, both working over the arms. I mean, you had Alberto trying to go for Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley eventually locking in his Alberto's finisher on him. That was very entertaining. And then the end was kind of weird, as it always is when you're doing that double stomp. They're on the outside, and somehow I think Alberto hit him with an enziguri, and Bobby Lashley kind of fell between the top and middle rope and was trying to hold himself on. Alberto tried to hurry up and get to the corner, but, you know, you're tired at this point. Hits the double stomp, and then the 1, 2, 3, and then, you know, the crowd went nuts. Not really. And the backstage kind of emptied out. And so you had a couple extra people in the ring celebrating with him, and as you mentioned, you had Jeff Jarrett just kind of like, all right, Alberto, go here. Okay, Alberto, bend down. Alberto, I'm going to insert some... No, I'm joking. Alberto...
It wasn't far from it.
Oh, pretty much. It really was.
He's like the baby face, you know, guy for them, where it's like, hey, he's the face of our company. And at the same time, it's like we're so desperately trying to maintain face to a degree that it's like, you know, we basically need to make sure that he does everything we need him to do.
Well, I think Jeff may have had a Sting moment where, remember when Sting was celebrating and never looked at the hard cam once?
Yeah, but see, the thing is that this is Alberto Del Rio. He worked with Vince McMahon.
He knows what he's doing out there.
You're going to look at the freaking hard cam all the time. You know to pose. You do. I'm sorry. Sting worked in WCW, where half the time nobody gave a shit. And okay, and for that matter, he was a lot older than Alberto Del Rio was at the time. So, yeah, it was very, very weird. And with the reports saying that there was a lot of awkwardness going on backstage, specifically about the main event during the day, I also found that weird. And if for some reason, and maybe I'm just looking too much into this, that the Bruce Richard thing is actually some sort of truth, that could be part of the commotion that was going on backstage. But at the same time, I was just like, I think, like, because they had the executives there, right? They had Ed Norholm, good old Ed. Of course. Did
they announce him as Eden Nordhol?
Not that I heard.
I could have sworn I heard that at the beginning of the night when they had them all out there and they had the other representatives of the other companies. I could have sworn they said Eden Nordhol, and I'm like, what?
Oh, well, maybe we could ask Rebby Sky. Rebby Hardy.
She knows his real name.
She'll know for sure. I got to give a shout out to Rebby Hardy, even if
attacking
she
Lita.
The show. Even though she doesn't listen to the show, shout out to Rebby Hardy, because every time she tweets, I mark out.
We have material.
Like it's like, oh yeah, Lita's a hoe, but never mind. That's fine. I didn't even mark. I marked like maybe at like a 5 out of 10 for that. But she, revealing the Jeff Jarrett DUI stuff, and like every time they talk about her, she freaking just throws out some new stuff, and I'm like, I love it every time. It's like, hey, alert. Okay, so anyways.
Let's before we move on, because we do have some other things to talk about, and like the general flow. And as you mentioned, there might be some stuff going on behind the scenes. Show over. Do you give it? We'll start off with the show itself, then we'll move into comparisons. If you're just looking at the show itself, I'm ready to give this like close to a thumbs up, really.
Grading on a TNA curve, I give it a thumbs up.
Exactly. We're looking at it this way. Then, unfortunately, they were going up against just a mutant beast of emotion right now. Not of emotion. How should I put this? Of a tidal wave of just awesomeness, which is New Japan, and especially now that they're doing the shows in America this weekend. As I mentioned at the top of the show, they got bitch slapped. And any other week, I'd be like, oh, this is a good way to end the weekend. Nice little Sunday show, not bad, good for you, not the best, but not mad at it. Holy crap, as I mentioned, just for me, and you're saying what I saw wasn't even the best. I mean, it got dwarfed.
Oh, by far, that's the thing. If I was in charge of Spike TV, for example, and basically the two companies walked into my office today and said, here's my tape, and here's my tape. And so it's the weekend events of G1 USA, and it's the, Slammiversary and, an episode of Impact. It's not even comparable. Literally, right now, that New Japan product that he put on this weekend was something that, to me, it could easily have a big following here in the United States, in North America, in Canada, obviously, since we are Canadian. It could have a huge following, as we saw. The merch line was outside the building and around the building. People paid tickets and didn't even see the show, or saw very little of the show.
Just because they wanted some of that sweet Young Bucks merch that's at Hot Topic as well?
Yes, and it's going to be soon in Canada as well, because now it's going to be at every single subsidy of that Hot Topic and everything. It's going to be everywhere now, because it was originally just limited stores, and now it's nationwide. But anyways, plug for good old Young Bucks, which I guess is not approved by Hills and Faces. But anyways,
everybody loves Young Bucks. You're all right.
Yeah, all right. So, they blew them out of the water in this, and it's not even close. It's not even comparison. As a guy who hasn't watched TNA on a regular basis for years, and a guy who's never really sat down and watched New Japan on any sort of long-term basis, I've watched single matches to mark out at, yes, but to watch it and sit down and watch a whole show, never really did that. And it was like this weekend I did that, and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And if you put that on TV right now, it would get a bigger following. They would make money. They'd be super profitable. And so that's why it was like, looking at it this weekend, I said, yeah, okay. So TNA was there. They did their show. They're far from what they used to be. And they're even far behind New Japan Pro Wrestling. They tried to copy it tonight, to be quite honest with you. There was, with many matchups there, that they were basically trying to copy them. They had certain spots or certain matches. They were like, hey, that was over last night. Let's do it tonight. And thought it would get over. But and maybe it would have, but the crowd didn't give a crap. So it was basically working against them from the get-go. But it's like, if for those who haven't seen the G1 USA events, go out of your way to see them. You will be blown away by the wrestling that was in these matchups, the stories that were told. Because like you mentioned, the Okada and Cody Rhodes match. and that was really a story that was being told there. And there were matchups that, it was more of a bit of a spot fest, yes. But right now, I can't wait to go and see the Young Bucks match from tonight. Like, just from the brief part I've seen so far, I'm just like, oh my God, that match is going to blow everything out of the water from tonight's pay-per-view. It's like intense. So yeah, definitely go and check that out. These guys had a very successful weekend, and that's one of the big highlights of this weekend, of this week so far, that people need to know about what's going on in wrestling right now, because that definitely was awesome. I was super, super impressed.
Yep, so let's move on to some of the unfortunate news. And it feels like a weird segue, but there's no good segue of it while you take a swig of your beer. We've unfortunately had some deaths in the family, as Smith Hart has passed away, I believe, earlier today. And we also learned of the death of the godfather of pro wrestling journalism, Dave Meltzer. His father, Herbert Meltzer, passed away as well this morning at age 90.
Yeah, rest in peace to both of those guys. It's never a good day when we hear about, a professional wrestling death. And it's, become obviously worse over the years. But today, a double whammy. And in fact, I heard it was Bret Hart's birthday today, which is even worse. And I feel that pain. I mean, my grandmother died of cancer on my birthday as well. So Smith Hart, when he moved into hospice care a few weeks ago, you knew the time was ticking down, and it's unfortunate that another member of that famous Hart family is gone, and that Hart family is dwindling down at this point, eh?
Yeah, I know. It's one of those weird things. He was I believe he was the oldest of all the Smith kids. Hart, I should say. And yeah, it's never fun. It's never great. So, rest in peace to both of them. And, our condolences go out to all of their families and friends and fans. Absolutely,
for sure. It's never fun to hear that. And of course, Dave Meltzer, his dad, and I still, Dave Meltzer, obviously it's a huge weekend for professional wrestling, and then he gets hit with this, and, we just got to send positive vibes his way. And of course, it's because of guys like that ultimately guys like ourselves are doing this broadcast. And so, our thoughts and prayers are not only with the Hart family, but as well with Dave Meltzer, because obviously it's never easy when you lose a family member. So, best of luck to him moving forward as well, getting over this. I can't wait, and hopefully that he's back on the horse, so to speak, and continue on with what he does, and of course being the example for all of us here in the wrestling media as well.
Yep, never take time off, and I don't think he ever has, so we'll see what happens there. All right, aside of that, man, I mean, this has been a huge weekend. I really wasn't expecting to be that big, but I stupidly, with New Japan there, I should have realized how big it was going to be. There's a lot going on, and I don't know what we're going to do for the rest of the G1 tournament or whatnot. I don't know if you're hooked at this point, if you're going to be watching the entire tournament. But there's a lot of ramifications coming out of there. I do want to talk just very quickly about the one match I did see, Cody Rhodes versus versus Okada, a little bit more at this point, because there's a lot of thoughts that are coming in for me. And just did you end up watching the last Okada versus Kenny Omega match?
Yeah, the very cool thing, and got to give props to New Japan as well for how they set up this weekend. On Access TV, they literally had a 12-hour marathon going on leading into the G1 event last night. And this is very cool, okay? This is a very cool thing that happened. They had this playing all day. And ultimately, I did, as a result of that, get to see that aforementioned match, okay? But that's not the coolest point of what I'm about to say. Not only did they do an amazing job at generating buzz, at giving everybody the opportunity, that U.S. crowd, to say, hey, you've heard about New Japan Pro Wrestling, perhaps you don't watch it all the time, Perhaps you know don't even watch our weekly episodes, but you've heard about the buzz tonight, and so you want to know what it's about. They put an all-day marathon of 12 hours that not only gave you that chance to catch up, to get a little bit of a feel of what the company's about, but it totally worked, and I'll tell you why. I marked out. Guess who happened to have it on in their house and decide that it was cool enough to tweet about and say, wow, New Japan Pro Wrestling is lit. Roseanne Barr. Okay, and I marked out because, of course, I marked out because I'm from that era, right? Of the Roseanne era.
You're a walking, talking Roseanne sitcom half the time.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm from that era, and I was, obviously a fan at the time. So, and the fact that it's coming back next year is even like, I couldn't. It's basically every show that I used to like.
How do they write themselves out of the series finale, though?
That's the biggest question, is that they don't know how they're going to position themselves in regards to the fact that Dan was technically dead.
She should just be put in a coma. That's how I do it.
Yeah, or you could just be like, WWE and just say, "Oh, I pretend that it never happened." Yeah, I mean, John Cena's a free agent, right? So,
well, no, his contract expired with SmackDown. That's fine.
Blah blah blah.
It happened before in the past.
They didn't even say that, did they?
No, but they will.
No, exactly.
I'm praying to God they'll. I'm praying to, like, it's so stupid. This is how much I just crave a little bit of continuity. Is I'm holding on to the fact that on Monday or on Tuesday when he does come back, that they openly admit it. They're like, oh shit, Dan O'Brien had his baby, and Shane McMahon has a concussion. That's how they let John Cena's contract lapse. That's all I want.
Well, I mean, that's what we talked about on the last show, right? We talked about how it just take a small line to make everything better.
It always does.
And they could do the same thing with the Roseanne return. But anyways, Roseanne, I guess maybe with her son or someone, whoever it may be, they happened to have the show on in their house at the time, and she decided to tweet, "Whoa, New Japan Pro Wrestling is lit," and I think it was like a clip of Kenny Omega doing something. And it was like, and of course that got
down to her being on Raw.
That got all sorts of attention, like crazy. And she obviously looks way older now, by the way. But and that's going to be a weird vibe when she's on the show now. But anyways, I saw that retweet. Okay, somebody retweeted it because I don't follow Roseanne Barr, even though I should, I guess. But I saw that tweet. I was like, what? Did Roseanne Barr just seriously tweet about New Japan Pro Wrestling, saying it's lit, for that matter, and showing a clip of like Kenny Omega? And it's the countdown show, basically. It's that 12-hour countdown show, because it was like basically a 12-hour countdown show showing everything from the recent past. And I was just like, wow, job well done, New Japan Pro Wrestling, because all of a sudden you got this major attention out of nowhere, and I was like, marking out. I was already kind of excited because I heard earlier in the week that Fight Network decided that they were going to show it, and I said, oh cool, it's available in Canada. And I look at the card and I said, oh wow, the card's actually pretty good. What the hell, I'm going to give it a chance, in the spirit of the fact that we're going to watch TNA from beginning to end pretty much for the first time in a long time. Let me look at those two shows. So I said, let me do that. And I see this tweet and I'm like, wow, that's very cool. That's quite the impact, pun intended, I guess.
Oh,
that they've done. So yeah, that was very, very cool that they did that, because that match I also got to see as a result of that. I was working on Saturday, but when I got home, the countdown, of course, was still going on. There's still a couple hours to go before the actual event was going to start, and so I got to see the match as a result. So that's my long-winded answer to your question.
All right, so on that, we do got to wrap it up now. I think we're well over an hour and 15 minutes. So any final thoughts before you and I get back here for, I believe, Great Balls of Fire?
Okay. anybody who is listening to our show, and I will be tweeting this out, we need to make sure, and I need this to become a national campaign. Okay? So definitely please retweet us about this. It's next Sunday, or is it the Sunday after?
Let me see very quickly. Continue talking while I confirm.
Yes. I'm pretty sure it's next Sunday, the 9th. We need to make sure that the official hashtag is not used on Sunday, okay? hashtag WWE GBOF shall not be used next Sunday. Please spread the word. Please retweet and make sure that the official hashtag for next Sunday's pay-per-view is hashtag WWE Balls, please.
I am 100% down, and yes, next Sunday, July the 9th, we will be all up in that. Let's get on Reddit. Get Reddit on our side. I'm sure that's going to happen.
We must do this. The movement must begin. I want the fact that they are going to be on pay-per-view.
And they're going to have to acknowledge WWE Balls as a trending hashtag.
That would be epic if they have to do that, because the WWE marks are still going to do WWE GBOF, okay? You know that it's going to trend because the WWE marks are still going to do that. And by the way, one day we'll have to talk about Twitter for that matter, because I know we're not going to do it today, even though I could continue talking for 3 hours, because I don't work tomorrow for that matter. But the fact that, and about how everything trends so easily thanks to pro wrestling fans is quite an interesting fact. But WWE marks, just to stay on point and end our show, because I know you want to end the show, hashtag WWE GBOF will trend, because those WWE marks will make sure that it trends. They will use it. WWE will use it. People will retweet them. But as long as it's another trending topic, I will be happy. So let's make WWE Balls trend next Sunday.
Hands down, we have our mission. So we'll be back next Sunday with the review of that show, but we'll be all up in the Twitter universe getting WWE Balls trending. At Steve Rockmaniac 00, at Forte Stabile.
No, at Rockamaniac 00.
What did I say?
Steve Rockamaniac 00.
Oh my god, that would be way too long. Yeah, at Rockamaniac 00. There's always a link in the description of the show if you're not already following Steve. At Forte Stabile, at Rowdy Wrestling. Everything will be there. We'll get Steve's polls up throughout the night, and we'll be able to talk about those after.
Now, mark Tony's words. We're gonna get Steve's poll up during the night. There you go.
Well, I mean, we got? Who's facing Alexa Bliss?
Who's facing it? Obviously Tony, because there's polls up. Anyways, let's end the show.
All right, everybody, have a great week. Thanks for downloading today's episode. If you're new around here and like what you've heard, hit that like button and slap the subscribe one too. Leave me a comment and tell me what you thought, and I'll see all of you next time.